As the evening settles in, casting long shadows across the quiet streets of London, I invite you to join me on a journey into a world where the veil between the living and the dead grows thin. Tonight, we're exploring an ancient Chinese tradition that might send a shiver down your spine: ghost marriages known as Minghun. This isn't mere folklore, it's a ritual rooted in thousands of years of culture, where love and duty transcend even death itself. Picture a union not bound by the earthly constraints of life, but sealed in the ethereal realm of the afterlife. Have you ever wondered if a spirit could linger, tied to those they loved, through sacred vows made in the shadows? In this video, I'll share two haunting true stories from Asia. One of a man who refused to let death part him from his beloved, and another of two souls united beyond the grave through dreams and whispers from the other side. These tales, passed down through generations, blend love, loss, and the uncanny. By the end, I'll unravel the cultural threads behind Minghun, revealing why families honor these spectral bonds. So, settle in, perhaps with a cup of tea, and let's step into a world where the departed are never truly gone. In the bustling heart of Hong Kong, where neon lights flicker against the night sky and the air hums with the rhythm of city life, a young girl named Emily grew up in a world that felt both ordinary and extraordinary. At 10 years old, she was the youngest in her family, a quiet observer in a household filled with love, laughter, and the comforting routines of daily life. Her older brother James was a towering figure in her world, not just because he was nearly 20 years her senior, but because he carried a warmth that made their modest flat feel like a haven. James was the sort of man who worked long hours at a local factory, his hands rough from labour, his dreams pinned on a future he was building with the woman he loved, Charlotte. To Emily, Charlotte wasn't just her brother's fiancée. She was the big sister she'd always wanted, a gentle presence who filled their home with kindness and small, thoughtful gestures. Charlotte was no stranger to Emily. For as long as the girl could recall, Charlotte had been there, her short hair framing a face that always seemed to carry a smile. She wasn't wealthy or glamorous, but she had a way of making Emily feel special. On quiet afternoons, when the Hong Kong sun cast golden rays through the market stalls, Charlotte would take Emily's hand and lead her to the corner shops. They'd pick out little treasures, notebooks adorned with cartoon cats, packs of stickers that sparkled under the shop lights, or delicate butterfly hair clips that Charlotte would weave into Emily's hair with care. "You're a proper little supermodel," Charlotte would tease, her fingers braiding Emily's hair into stylish twists, her laughter soft and warm. These moments were their secret, a bond that felt like a gift in a world that often moved too fast. Charlotte was more than a future sister-in-law to Emily. She was the one who took her side in sibling squabbles, who'd playfully scold James when he teased his little sister too much. "Leave her be, James," she'd say, her voice firm but kind, and Emily would beam, feeling protected in a way only a big sister could manage. The family adored Charlotte, and when James proposed after a decade together, it felt like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. The wedding was set for the end of the year, and excitement buzzed through their home. James worked tirelessly, saving every penny for the life he and Charlotte dreamed of. A simple flat of their own, perhaps, or a future where they could build a family. Emily couldn't wait for the day Charlotte would officially become her sister, a bond sealed not just by love, but by the promise of forever. But life, as it so often does, had other plans. One rainy July evening, when the skies over Hong Kong wept and the streets glistened under the downpour, tragedy struck with the force of a thunderclap. Charlotte, ever thoughtful, had slipped out to a nearby food stall to pick up James's favourite treat, Galoodan curry fish balls, a small gesture to brighten his long day at the factory. She clutched a plastic bag, twisting it closed to shield it from the rain, her steps careful as she crossed the road. But the rain made the streets slick, and a delivery truck, its driver struggling against the storm, lost control. In an instant, the world went silent, save for the patter of rain on concrete. The plastic bag tore open, fish balls scattering across the wet road, and Charlotte lay motionless under the deluge. A crowd gathered, their murmurs blending with the rain, some rushing to nearby shops for help, but it was too late. James was at work when the call came. He didn't wait to clock out or grab an umbrella. He ran through the storm, his heart pounding with a dread he couldn't name. By the time he reached the hospital, the truth was already waiting. Charlotte hadn't survived the impact. Her injuries were too severe, and despite the doctor's efforts, she was gone. Emily, standing in the sterile hospital corridor, watched as her brother collapsed beside Charlotte's bedside, clutching her lifeless form. The sound that tore from his throat wasn't just grief. It was a raw, guttural wail that seemed to carry the weight of a shattered world. Emily, too young to fully grasp death, felt her own tears fall, her heart breaking not just for Charlotte, but for the sight of her invincible big brother, reduced to such raw sorrow. It was the first time she'd seen death so close, and it left a mark she'd never forget. The next morning, their flat was cloaked in an eerie stillness. Emily wandered into the living room, where James sat on the sofa, still in yesterday's clothes, his eyes fixed on the floor. In his hands, he held one of Charlotte's shirts, cradling it as if it were as fragile as a memory. His face was gaunt, his eyes distant, as though part of him had followed Charlotte into the beyond. Emily stood in the doorway, unsure of what to say, her small frame dwarfed by the weight of the moment. Her parents tried to reach him, offering soft words and gentle touches, but James was unreachable, lost in a grief too deep for comfort. Then, in a voice so low it barely carried, he spoke. "I still want to marry her," he said. "Charlotte, I want to make her my wife." The room froze. His parents, shaken but not angry, tried to reason with him. "James," his father said, his voice heavy with concern. "Charlotte's gone. She's not here anymore." His mother, her eyes brimming with tears, added, "You're young, love. Time will heal you. But this, it's not right." They thought it was grief speaking, a desperate plea born of loss. But James wasn't listening. His hands tightened around Charlotte's shirt, his resolve unshaken. To him, Charlotte wasn't gone, not in the way that mattered. In his heart, she was still there, waiting for the vows they'd promised each other. For 3 days, James barely ate or spoke. He sat in silence, clutching fragments of Charlotte's life, a photo, a hair clip, that worn shirt, as if they could anchor her to him. His parents' words couldn't reach him, their pleas drowned out by his singular focus. Finally they relented, their hearts heavy but unable to watch their son waste away. They spoke with Charlotte's family, expecting resistance, but to their surprise, her parents agreed. Perhaps they saw the depth of James's pain, or perhaps they too believed love could bridge the worlds of the living and the dead. And so, preparations began for a ritual few spoke of openly. Ming Hun, a marriage in the realm of the dead. The ceremony took place a few nights later, under the flickering glow of candles in a small room heavy with the scent of incense. A Taoist priest, his voice steady and solemn, led the ritual, guiding the families through a tradition as old as the hills of China. 2 tables stood side by side, one for each family, adorned with bowls of rice and burning candles. James sat alone at the front, his face pale but resolute, while beside him, on a wooden chair, stood Charlotte's ancestral plaque, its polished surface gleaming in the dim light. The air was thick with reverence, every gesture weighted with meaning. The priest chanted, his words weaving a bridge between 2 worlds, and offerings were made, food, prayers, and a small wooden doll dressed in a traditional Chinese wedding outfit. Inside the doll, James placed a few strands of Charlotte's hair and a slip of paper bearing her name, birth date, and time of birth. This was Charlotte's vessel, a bride crafted for a wedding no longer bound by the laws of the living. When the ritual ended, James and Charlotte were married, not in the world of bustling markets and rainy streets, but in the quiet, unseen realm of the afterlife. The wooden doll wasn't tucked away or forgotten. It became part of their home, a permanent presence. At every family dinner, it sat at the table beside James, and Emily's mother would insist, with a firmness that brooked no argument, "Remember to greet your sister-in-law before eating." Emily, ever obedient, would glance at the doll and murmur, "Sister-in-law, please eat," using the respectful Cantonese honorific she'd have used for Charlotte in life. To the family, the doll was no mere object. It was Charlotte, woven into their daily lives with a quiet dignity that defied explanation. At first, the ritual felt strange to Emily, a child navigating a world where the lines between the living and the dead blurred. But over time, it became routine, as natural as the rhythm of their meals or the hum of the city outside. Yet there were moments that unsettled her, moments that hinted at something beyond the ordinary. One night, as she slept on the top bunk in the room she shared with James, Emily grew too warm and kicked off her blanket. It slipped to the floor, and too tired to retrieve it, she drifted back to sleep. When she woke the next morning, the blanket was back, neatly tucked around her. James, a notoriously heavy sleeper, couldn't have done it, and her parents swore they hadn't entered the room. The question lingered, unspoken but heavy, in Emily's mind. Years passed, and the strange moments continued. When Emily was 12, she took a shortcut home through a narrow alley, a path she knew well. But that day, a pack of stray dogs blocked her way, their barks sharp and menacing. Cornered, her school bag clutched to her chest, she froze as the lead dog lunged, its teeth bared. Then, inexplicably, it yelped as if struck, scrambling back as the others fled. For a fleeting moment, Emily felt a presence beside her, warm and familiar. But when she turned, no one was there. Later, she found butterfly clips and stickers in her bag, small gifts like the ones Charlotte used to buy her, though she hadn't visited the corner shop in months. The most profound moment came when Emily was 14, struck by crippling headaches that led to a chilling diagnosis: a small tumour in her brain requiring urgent surgery. The night before the operation, she lay in her hospital bed, fear gnawing at her. In the haze between sleep and wakefulness, she felt a gentle hand stroke her hair, a comforting presence that calmed her racing heart. A shadowy figure sat beside her, the silhouette of a woman with short hair. And though Emily couldn't see her face, she felt no fear, only warmth. The next morning, as she was wheeled into the operating theatre, her body trembling under the harsh lights, she saw her again. A woman stepped forward, took her hand, and whispered, "Don't be scared, Emily. You'll be okay. I'm right here with you." The voice was soft, familiar, like a memory from a life not yet lost. When Emily awoke in the recovery room, her parents' tearful relief greeted her. The surgery had been a success, the doctors said, almost miraculously so. Later, Emily asked about the woman with short hair in the operating theatre, wanting to thank her for the strength she'd given her. The doctor frowned, puzzled. "No one was there," he said. "The theatre is sterile. No visitors, no exposed hair. It might have been the anesthesia." But Emily knew better. It was Charlotte, the sister who'd always protected her, watching over her still. Not just in life, but in the quiet spaces where the living and the dead meet. So, what do you think? Was Charlotte's spirit truly bound to that wooden doll, guarding Emily through the years? Or were these moments the workings of a grieving child's imagination? The question lingers, like a whisper in the dark, inviting us to ponder the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. Share your thoughts and let's unravel this enigma together. As the rain patters against the windows of a quiet British home, casting a soft grey light over the room, let us venture deeper into the enigmatic world of Minghun, the Chinese tradition of ghost marriages that binds souls across the divide of life and death. This ancient practice, stretching back over 2 millennia, is not merely a tale of spirits and superstition, but a profound expression of love, duty, and the enduring bonds of family. In Chinese culture, death is not the end, but a passage to the Yamgan, the underworld, where spirits linger, sometimes restless if their earthly lives were left incomplete. For those who died unmarried, particularly the young, their souls are believed to wander, lonely and unmoored, unable to find peace. Minghun, meaning marriage in the dark realm, offers a remedy, a sacred union that ensures the departed are not alone in the afterlife, their fates fulfilled through rituals that echo with ancestral reverence. There are 2 forms of Minghun, each steeped in its own solemn purpose. The first, and most traditional, is a marriage between 2 deceased souls, often arranged by families to honor those who died too soon, their lives cut short before love could be sealed. The second, rarer and more poignant, involves a living person pledging themselves to a departed beloved, as we saw with James and Charlotte. This act, born of devotion or obligation, binds the living to the dead in a vow that may last a lifetime. In traditional families, the living spouse might never remarry, as such an act could be seen as a betrayal of the spectral bond. Yet in more modern households, a ritual akin to a spiritual divorce can release the living, allowing them to move forward while honoring the deceased. The ceremony itself is a tapestry of symbolism, ancestral tablets, red strings tying souls together, and offerings of food and incense to appease the spirits. These rituals, led by Taoist priests, are not mere formalities, but acts of profound closure, ensuring the dead rest easy and the living find solace. Now let us step into another tale from Hong Kong, one that weaves together the threads of loss, dreams, and a connection that defies the boundaries of the mortal world. This is the story of Sophie, a woman now in her 30s, who as a child stumbled upon a mystery that would unravel a bond forged in the afterlife. It began nearly 3 decades ago, in a time when Hong Kong's older villages still held tightly to their traditions, their narrow lanes lined with modest houses that whispered of the past. Sophie, then a curious girl of 7 or 8, spent a weekend at her grandmother's home, a small dwelling tucked away in one such village. The house was a world apart from the city's neon bustle, a place of creaking wooden floors, heavy furniture, and the faint, lingering scent of incense that clung to the walls like a memory. With no television or toys to occupy her, Sophie's restless curiosity led her to explore every corner of the house. She rifled through dusty drawers, peeked behind faded curtains, and wandered with the fearless inquisitiveness of youth. Eventually, her explorations brought her to the family altar, a sacred space she'd been taught to approach with respect. The altar was adorned with ancestral tablets, sanjupai as they're called in Cantonese, wooden or stone plaques that serve as spiritual homes for the departed. Families offer incense, food, and prayers to these tablets, maintaining a connection with ancestors across generations. Sophie, standing on tiptoes atop a wooden stool, scanned the row of tablets, their gold-etched names gleaming softly in the dim light. But something else caught her eye. Tucked behind one of the plaques, a plain white paper fan, its edges yellowing with age, unadorned and unremarkable, save for a thin red string tied tightly from its handle to a nearby tablet. The fan puzzled her. It didn't belong among the solemn offerings, and its simplicity stood out in the reverent space. Squinting at the tablet's unfamiliar Chinese characters, Sophie called to her grandmother, her voice bright with curiosity. "Gran, what's this fan? Why's it tied to the tablet?" Her grandmother froze, her face softening with a distant sadness, as though Sophie's question had stirred something long buried. "Come down from there, love," she said gently, her voice carrying the weight of years. She lifted Sophie from the stool and sat in her place, her gaze settling on the altar with a quiet intensity. After a long pause, she began to speak, her words slow and deliberate, as if unraveling a thread she'd kept wound tight for decades. She told Sophie of a time when she was young, a new mother cradling a baby boy who brought light to her world. But that light was fleeting. Just days after his birth, the boy slipped away, too fragile to hold on to life, his tiny body succumbing to complications no doctor could mend. In Chinese tradition, a child who dies before being named is a lost soul, their spirit adrift in the Yamgan without an anchor to guide them. The temple elders, wise in the ways of the spirit world, advised her to create a vessel for her son's soul, something to give him a place to rest. She chose a simple white paper fan, an unassuming object to carry the weight of her grief. For over 20 years, it sat on the altar, a quiet memorial to a life that never fully bloomed. Then, one night, everything changed. Her grandmother described a dream so vivid, it felt more real than the waking world. She found herself on a quiet beach, the air thick with mist, the tide lapping gently at the shore. In the distance stood a small house, its windows glowing with a warm, inviting light. As she approached, the door opened and a young couple stepped out, a man and a woman, both smiling, their faces unfamiliar yet strangely familiar. The man, in his 20s, looked at her with eyes that carried a warmth she couldn't place. Then he spoke, his voice soft but clear. "Ma," he said, his smile wide. Her heart stopped. It was her son, the boy who'd never grown beyond infancy, now standing before her as a grown man. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for his hands, a flood of recognition washing over her. "Ma, I'm not alone anymore," he continued, his voice steady with joy. "I found a wife here. Her family wants to meet you." He repeated an address, urging her to remember it, to visit and say hello. In his hand, he held the white paper fan, its edges worn but unmistakable. The young woman beside him said nothing, offering only a polite nod, her smile serene. "Thank you for everything, Ma," he whispered, pulling her into a tight embrace. "Don't forget to bring the fan." Sss, and then the dream dissolved, leaving her grandmother awake in her bed, her face damp with tears, her heart racing. She scrambled for a pen and paper, scribbling the address before it could fade, the name of a village not far from her own, perhaps 20 or 30 minutes away. Uncertain but compelled, she set out the next morning, the folded paper clutched in her hand. The village was much like her own, its houses modest, laundry swaying on lines outside. She found the address, a 3-story home, unremarkable yet eerily familiar from her dream. She knocked, her heart pounding, and a woman her age answered, her face kind but curious. Hesitant at first, her grandmother poured out the story, the dream, the beach, her son, his bride, the fan. She braced for disbelief, but the woman didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped aside, her voice calm. "I was expecting you," she said. "I had a similar dream a few nights ago." Inside, the woman shared her own story. 20 years earlier, she too had lost a child, a baby girl, taken by illness soon after birth. Like Sophie's grandmother, she'd been haunted by the thought of her daughter's soul wandering, unclaimed. And then, in a dream mirroring the one her grandmother had described, she'd seen her daughter, grown and radiant, standing beside a young man on that same misty beach. The couple had spoken of their union, urging her to meet the man's family. When her grandmother mentioned the white fan, the woman's eyes widened. She hadn't spoken of it, yet the stranger knew, as if the dreams had woven their stories together. The two mothers sat in silence, their shared loss and shared dreams binding them in a way that defied logic. They knew their children were no longer alone. In the Yamgan, their son and daughter had found each other. Their souls joined in a marriage that transcended death. Determined to honor this bond, they sought a local Taoist shaman, a figure respected in the villages for guiding spiritual matters. Under his guidance, they performed a quiet ritual, placing the white fan beside a newly carved ancestral tablet representing both children. A red string was tied from the fan to the tablet, sealing their union in the afterlife. Offerings of incense and food were made, their prayers a soft hymn to the departed. From that day, the two families became intertwined, meeting each year to burn incense, share meals, and honor the couple whose love had bridged their worlds. The white fan remained on the altar, a symbol of a bond that endured beyond the grave, a testament to the power of dreams to connect the living with those who had passed. This story, like the one before it, speaks to the heart of Minghun. Not just a ritual of superstition, but a profound act of love and closure. Whether you believe in the spirits that linger in the Yamgan or see these tales as echoes of human longing, they remind us that some bonds are too strong to be broken by death. What do you make of Sophie's story? Was the white fan truly a vessel for her grandmother's son? Or was it a shared dream born of grief? Let us know your thoughts, and let's ponder the mysteries that linger in the shadows of tradition. As the flickering glow of our tale fades, like embers settling in a hearth, we're left to ponder the mysteries woven into the fabric of Minghun, the Chinese tradition of ghost marriages that binds souls beyond the grave. In the stories of Emily and Sophie, we've glimpsed a world where love and loyalty defy the finality of death. Charlotte, ever present in Emily's life, seemed to linger in the shadows, her gentle touch guiding a frightened girl through life's darkest moments. Likewise, Sophie's grandmother found solace in a dream that united her lost son with another soul, their bond sealed by a simple white fan and a red string. These tales, steeped in the ancient rituals of Hong Kong's villages, remind us that some connections endure, not just in memory, but in the quiet spaces where the living and the departed meet. Whether you believe in the spirits of the Yam Gan or see these stories as echoes of human longing, their power lies in their testament to love's unyielding strength. As you sit by your window, perhaps with the soft patter of British rain outside, reflect on this. Can a vow made in life hold fast in the afterlife? If these stories stirred your curiosity about the world's hidden traditions or the mysteries of the unseen, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more journeys into the extraordinary. Share your thoughts below. Do you believe Charlotte still watches over Emily? Let's keep exploring the shadows together.